From a hidden network of top secret, highly secure locations across South Texas, this is the Spurs Insider Podcast with Express News sports editor Nick Talbot and beat writers Tom Ringo Starr Orsborn and the polarizing Jeff Mcdonald. I am Mike Finger. We are coming to you during a interesting week for the local Cagers. They keep losing players. I guess they're getting some back, but they don't have all-stars. They don't have their full roster, but they're right there near the top of the Western Conference. How are they pulling this off, Jeff Mcdonald?
Smoke and mirrors, baling wire, and chewing gum. I don't know. It's funny. They could really be 2-0 in these shorthanded games, too. If they would have pulled off that win over Oklahoma City to start this little undermanned run, that really would have been something. I thought rallying to getting it together to beat New Orleans was a pretty big win for them because, they did not win that game against Oklahoma City, which I thought they could have, and they certainly had a chance to. And New Orleans is a more talented team than that, and it kind of looked like if they didn't get that game, it was going to be a long, dark period. Now they've split those two games. They've got a pretty tough back-to-back coming up here at the AT&T Center. But they're going to start to get some more bodies back here in the next few days, and maybe they have they can sort of survive this stretch without really tanking it too badly.
Tom.
Yes, sir.
do you have any?
I feel like a teacher, like calling on people in class.
Do you have any trenchant bits of insight as to what happened this past week?
Well, DeMar DeRozan coming back Saturday night against New Orleans. I mean, that was huge. What a game he had. It's really, really something to see the way he played, coming off what he went through and just, gosh, what a performance. I mean, 11 assists and 1 turnover. Just everything clicked for him. It was really fun to see. I like their chances on this back-to-back, actually, just like I liked them in Oklahoma City. There's something about being shorthanded and having to play guys from the bottom of the bench and calling up from the G League that, I don't know, it just works for them. You got to attribute it to Pop. I mean, whatever the man does, it works in those kind of situations. And, James Harden, just something about being in the AT&T Center that throws him off, I think, and what they do against him defensively. So I kind of like their chances to finish strong going into the All-Star break.
The ghost of Mano swooping down from the rafters to block him from behind.
I think so. I think that's part of it, Mike.
Jeff mentioned how the Spurs could have won both games last week. I think if you look at the roster that they had, I mean, they had 10 guys for both games, basically. A lot of rotation players out for both. Getting one or the other is a pretty big deal. You don't want to get too greedy. They could have won at Oklahoma City, but the reason they didn't was kind of self-explanatory. I mean, they didn't have their finishers. They put themselves in position to win, but when you're going down to the stretch Patty Mills is great at his job, but I mean, that's not the guy that you kind of depend on to create something down the stretch. I think, like Tom mentioned, they did a great job. Pop did a great job of putting them in position, but getting through that week 1-1 was probably all they could ask for. And now you have the Nets coming in on Monday night. I believe Kevin Durant is out, right? But you still have 2 other All-Stars to deal with.
Kevin Durant is out, but you still have Kyrie, who Kyrie does not seem to have problems playing the AT&T Center, by the way.
That's true.
I think Kyrie still holds the building record for scoring for an opponent. So he's going to be a handful, and so is James. The Nets can score. That's the thing. The Nets have the highest score, even without Kevin. They can score. They have the highest scoring offense in the NBA, and so if the Spurs don't have their horses, it's It's hard to see them keeping up, but yeah, you never know. Maybe DeMar has another game like he did the other night against New Orleans, and let's talk about that some more. Like that was a really really gutsy and unexpected kind of performance. Just
Was it?
Like he
Once
hadn't played.
once we got the word that he was going to play, I for one expected a huge game from him.
He hadn't played or practiced in 2 weeks. Like I don't know that people understand how difficult that is to do, to have not played or practiced or worked out. Do we know if he worked out? Because half that time he's in a hotel room in Charlotte. The other half he's dealing with his father's death and the funeral. Like I don't know how much he was able to do cardio wise, conditioning wise, to just show up off the street and play an NBA game and go for 32 and 11 when your team just desperately needed that kind of performance from you is pretty darn special, I think.
I'm not downplaying it or disputing that at all. I'm just saying that when I got the email that said that he's available to play on, was it Saturday night, I kind of expected it, even despite everything that you're talking about. He just seems like the type, knowing this was his first game back since the death of his father, knowing that he had watched the Spurs kind of lose an opportunity to win at Oklahoma City, saw how much he was needed. This whole year, really his whole tenure in San Antonio has been about how people maybe don't give DeMar DeRozan the credit that he deserves. And this was just an example of he's not known NBA wide or even San Antonio wide as a gamer, as a guy who lives up to big moments. But I think he's done that a lot more than people realize.
The All-Star snub might have played a part into it too, but sure. I thought it was just a classic case of him doing what he always does, letting the game come to him and, figuring it out as he goes. I didn't see him, doing something extra because of the All-Star snub, although that's hard to quantify. But I just thought he's just a great game. And like Jeff was saying, I was on the side of thinking, yeah, there might be some rust to shake off, and having been out for so long. And I guess Keldon Johnson will be keeping an eye on him. He's listed as questionable for tonight, so we'll see how he responds.
Well, to your point, Tom, about DeMar not doing too much against New Orleans, the closing. You guys were taking meticulous notes for game stories and whatnot, but so you'll have to refresh my memory. But in the closing minute, in some big possessions where typically your scorer just goes and gets you a bucket, DeMar, like Tom was saying, continued to kind of make the right play. And there was a situation. I'm almost positive it was in the last minute when it was a penetrating dish for a three. He, instead of forcing the shot in traffic, he hit the open man, and that's what he's been doing all year. That might be why he's not an all-star, because he doesn't average as many points as Devin Booker or some of these other guys, but he's had a tremendous statistical year when you go up and down the box score and in terms of just impact on the game. So I don't think we can say enough about him.
I guess he really is kind of upset about not making the All-Star team. We haven't been able to talk to him yet, but that's sort of what other players, teammates have alluded to, that DeMar is kind of upset at the snub, which, I guess everyone likes recognition. But man, if this is the year to be snubbed, I think this is the year where I wouldn't mind it so much for a host of reasons.
That's right. That's what it is. I mean, it's not necessarily about like he's desperate to fly to Atlanta and stay in a hotel room for 2 days and then go sit on the bench for the majority of probably not that great All-Star game. But I mean, you want the respect of your peers, and I know that Jeff, you've never had that, but it is something that you've probably desired. Is that correct?
True. That is untrue. That is patently. There was one day in 2012, I had the respect of one of my peers.
Who was that?
I'll just remain nameless because now my story's falling apart.
Uh-huh. Nick Talbot hasn't spoken
scrutiny.
much. Nick Talbot hasn't spoken much on this podcast. Does Jeff McDonald at least have the respect of his superiors?
Jeff McDonald has the respect of his superiors. He doesn't make a lot of typos, and his superiors appreciate that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
Take that,
no, but
finger.
I think the point is, if you're talking about the best guys and you think you're the best guy, you want the other players to say you're one of the best guys, the other coaches, the fans. And I can see how DeMar would be upset about that, even if you don't. Like, how many times in my life have I been received an invitation that I did not want to go? Like, I never want to go anywhere, even like before all this quarantine stuff. It was like, oh, people want me to go someplace. I don't want to go someplace, but I want to be asked. I'd be upset if I wasn't asked. It's like you want the right to complain about not getting to go. I think I relate to DeMar totally in this
You
situation.
sound like such a diva right now. My goodness.
like if he would have been invited to the All-Star game, he would have been up and I got to go to the All-Star game after this month I've been through.
This is the year where you want to be invited to the All-Star game, but then you want to have a sore knee, so you don't have to go.
Right. Yeah. There you go. Go ahead, Tom.
Well, I thought it was telling that Pop really endorsed him after the snub. I know he's supported guys in the past before, but he doesn't really do that a lot, right? But he was very passionate about endorsing and
the dynamic. It's interesting that the dynamic with Pop and DeMar is that Pop is always going to stick up for DeMar because he thinks that most people don't. Like Pop did not have to stick up for Tim Duncan because everyone acknowledged that Tim Duncan was great. Manu, whoever. DeMar, rightly or wrongly, probably is a guy who deserves more positive reinforcement that he gets, and I think Pop recognizes that. Is that like an accurate assessment? Do you think?
I've never deigned to put myself in Greg Popovich's head because that just seems wild.
I always thought he does it more with LA. Yeah.
Yeah.
I always thought he did it more with, or does it more with LaMarcus than DeMar. But yeah, I think he does it more with LaMarcus than with DeMar. But it's a good point you make.
Speaking of that guy,
another
talk about that guy?
Exactly. Another fascinating development is during a week in which the Spurs have been as shorthanded as they've been in a long time,
maybe ever.
This of all the weeks is the week that LaMarcus Aldridge gets sent to the bench. Something that I thought would not happen during his tenure as a Spur. I admit to being legitimately surprised that Greg Popovich made the move to when you're bringing LaMarcus Aldridge back from injury, he's going to come off the bench now. I think that's something that has made sense for a long time, but I didn't think it was going to happen, and now it seems like it's going to be a regular thing for a while.
And I guess it works, or I don't know if it works or not. We've had a 2-game sample size, but I guess it makes sense. We talked about it last week. Just anything to get Jakob Poeltl minutes, man. Just anything to get Jakob Poeltl on the floor. And I know that you think I'm doing a bit, but I think Poeltl has emerged as a key part of whatever it is the Spurs are accomplishing this season. And you don't want to throw him off his groove. So let LaMarcus come off the bench. He can for large parts of the game, he can work against second team guys, like the second units, which that could be helpful for him. And he had a really great game against New Orleans. So much of it is going to be how much he accepts it and embraces it, I think.
Sean Elliott made that point during the broadcast of the night that this could be a way to get him going just because he's not going against starters anymore. And we saw some of that against New Orleans. I also think, not to make too much of this, but like you don't necessarily make this move with a guy like LaMarcus with his track record if you're worried about keeping him happy and re-signing him at the end of the year. And,
that is absolutely true and fair. Yep.
Yeah.
Wouldn't this be his role with another team, perhaps, if he goes to a? Yeah,
it could work in his favor. I'm not sure if
it's a good way to showcase him for this kind of role.
I think you're right about that, and I'm not sure if LaMarcus sees that, but this could be a good thing for his future. If another, again, we're not proclaiming that LaMarcus is gone for sure at the end of the year or gone before the trade deadline or whatever, but just. I think for Aldridge's own career, for him to be able to show other teams that he can be productive as a guy who's a bit past his prime, as a guy off the bench. It could be good for. It's good for the Spurs. Could be good for him.
Since we're putting ourselves in people's heads and deciding how we think they think, I bet LaMarcus hates it though. I don't think I don't think he wants to do this at all. For a lot of the same reasons we were talking about with DeMar in the All-Star game, there's a pride situation, and I don't begrudge him that at all. He's been a starter in this league for 15 years. He's been an All-Star 7 times. Nobody was ever asking Tim Duncan to go off the bench. Not that LaMarcus is in that category, but he's a star like Tim was. So I don't. Maybe also LaMarcus is, to me, just having seen him for 5 years now, is very much a creature of habit. Like if you don't change things on him, you relate to DeMar, I relate to LaMarcus. Just don't change things on him. Don't change his job, his role, things going around him, food you serve for lunch.
Yeah.
Keep everything the same. So I think part of it would be that he doesn't like change that much, and now he's having to kind of reinvent himself.
Which is why I thought it wasn't going to happen. Which is why I'm surprised that it did, because I think the Spurs know that about him. And I think what the decision came down to for Pop, for the staff, for the whole brain trust is, basically, yes. Not quite that eloquently, but what does keeping LaMarcus happy get us? And does possibly making LaMarcus unhappy is that outweighed by all the benefits of what can happen if he's a little bit unhappy? I think they finally came to the conclusion that, hey, if we do this and we risk losing him a little bit, like that's fine. If it means more of future All NBA center Jakob Poeltl and just this new style of basketball, I think they just finally came to the conclusion that we can't worry about keeping him happy forever.
Yeah, Pop wouldn't be Pop if he didn't make this kind of move that is for the best of the team.
Right.
Well, this is life, it's something we all go through.
How much are they having to watch his minutes?
Go ahead, Nick.
I said, how much are they having to watch his minutes? I know Popovich said before he went off the bench that, they're also monitoring his minutes. So how much is the injury playing into that factor? And do you think that kind of spared LaMarcus the embarrassment of going to the bench because, hey, we can blame it on, he's coming off an injury, even though kind of bad timing with everyone being shorthanded?
I'm sure that they presented it that way, but LaMarcus isn't stupid. And he does have that pride, like any great competitor has, like any great player has. He takes pride in having all. When was the last time he come off the bench? His rookie year.
Yeah.
Long time ago.
While we're on the subject, another guy who absolutely hated coming off the bench was this fellow called Manu Ginobili. He didn't like that.
That's true.
He would tell you that straight out. Like, I understand it's for the good of the team and blah blah blah, but I don't like it. So I don't think it's a character flaw necessarily to to not want to come off the bench when you think. I think it's the other. I think every player in the NBA should want to be a starter. So
yeah.
But we'll see how he embraces it.
But
and if he does, it could be a good thing for them.
Yeah. Well, he's doing it. I think he has embraced it. He's doing it. Just like the 3-point shooting, he recognized that as being good for his career, and maybe we're selling him a little bit short. I think he's mature enough to handle this, and I think the conversation might have been just straight up. This is what's best for the team, and maybe best for your career going forward.
Yeah. So this is happening at a time when I guess we could tick off the names: Derek White, Keldon Johnson, Rudy Gay. Those are the three rotation players that remain out.
Devin Vassell.
Those are the four. Quindary Weatherspoon kind of is a two-way guy at the end of the bench who probably wasn't going to play much anyway. But when everybody comes back, when it's sort of full strength, do we imagine that they will go back to the starting lineup of DeJounte and Derek together with DeMar DeRozan, Keldon Johnson, and Jakob Poeltl, and then that makes LaMarcus your backup center? I think it's probably trending in that direction, and I think that could be two pretty good units.
Yeah, I think that's what they want to do. Again, I'm just sort of guessing and putting puzzle pieces together, but that's the lineup they were rolling with to start the rodeo trip before, COVID shut it down. And, if you were ever going to put LaMarcus back in the like part of the reason you're bringing LaMarcus off the bench now, I think, is to get him acclimated to it. Like if you had no intention of that being your long-term thing, then of course you just start him now. You need all the bodies you can get. So, I think it's those two things put together lead me to believe that is the rotation that they kind of want to go with if and when they ever have everybody healthy at the same time again, which I think Pop said that will be after the All-Star break. They'll have everybody. They might get a couple guys trickling in here the last 3 games before the break, but it'll be after the break before that injury report is clear.
And the way the injury report is working now, again, we're recording this from the top secret, highly secure locations on Monday morning. There's a game against the Nets this evening, and at this moment, all of the COVID health and protocol guys are listed as out, except for Keldon Johnson, who's questionable because of reconditioning, which basically means, as far as the NBA is concerned, as far as the official COVID protocols are concerned, he can play, but the Spurs aren't sure whether they want to throw him back out there if he has not had any conditioning it's been 2 weeks now.
And I don't know if you guys noticed, but Quindary obviously is still listed as out, but his status has changed to reconditioning. So he's out of the protocols too, according to it's interesting
and he was on Saturday as well, I believe.
Yeah.
Like he could have played Saturday.
So he's out, but Keldon is questionable. I just kind of wonder what the difference is there. I have no way of knowing at this point what the difference is between them. But it's just interesting how these guys are going to come back in different ways at different speeds, in different orders.
Yep. Another thing that happened during this past week, a lot of off-the-court stuff. There was COVID. There was DeMar coming back. There was LaMarcus going to the bench, and we got what we knew was going to be a jam-packed second-half schedule. Now we see the details of it. Because 5 games got postponed due to COVID during the first half, that meant 5 extra in the second half, and that means 40 games and 68 nights to finish the year. It's not on the one hand, there are a lot of Eastern Conference teams on it. They're already finished with the Lakers, some of the tougher teams, but it's a lot of games in not many nights, and that could be a challenging finish for the Cagers.
11 back-to-backs. No team in the NBA has more games in the second half than the Spurs. Memphis has 40 as well. But the Spurs are going to be tied for the busiest team over these final 60 days. And that's a problem. Last week when we were fantasizing about what seed the Spurs might land in the playoffs, I don't think I was really thinking about the second half schedule, even though there's a lot of Eastern Conference teams on it. Might just be a complete pain in the butt to navigate, and they're gonna have to gut out some wins. And then I'm sitting there thinking about it, like, do you really want to play your butt off through those 68 games and then make a play-in that starts 2 days after that's over? And then, at what point is it just not worth it? Yes. That's one of my personality, though. Like, this is not worth it. I'd rather just be done.
It's worth it.
Done earlier.
Part of the, I think we mentioned this a lot. Part of development and part of when you look at this roster and all the guys, basically your last five, you have 5 first rounders in a row that I think are going to be a part of this core. You got to learn how to play in the playoffs at some point. You got to learn how to win. And this isn't a team that needs to think about tanking or just saying forget it and not make the effort. Get into that play-in game. Even if you lose it, that's an experience worth building on. Win it and get into a 1 versus 8 game, 2 versus 7 game series. That's something to build on. I shouldn't say all. Most teams that become champions go through those steps, and you might as well take it this year.
Just to put the schedule into perspective, they're okay. They're going to go to the All-Star break. You get the break off, and then you come back, and they will never have 2 days off in a row again until their season is over. And again, right. I'm not arguing against the play-in game, but I'm just saying. They didn't have. If you get there, you don't even have. You get 1 day, and then the play-in starts. It's just such.
They didn't have 2 games in a row, 2 days in a row off very often in the first half either. The way this has been, it's going to catch up with them.
They had 5 days in a row off, but 9 days in a row off.
Yeah, while they weren't practicing.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
My point is, I don't
think it's.
Someone described it as a playoff pace over 68 days, and that's about what it is. I mean, It's a little worse because you don't have back-to-backs in the playoffs. It's just boom, boom, boom.
If they play all 40
boom,
games, I'd be surprised.
Sure, there's going to be breaks, and they're going to miss some when other teams go through COVID stuff.
And look what the Raptors are going through. I mean, you're bound to find somewhere in there where there's. I'd be surprised if they hit 72. If any team hits 72 this season, I'd kind of be surprised. There's going to be, half the teams maybe get 72, but
right.
There's going to be a lot of COVID breaks too. So, I mean, there'll be 2 days off somewhere in there. It just kind of depends on where it falls in the schedule. Maybe they'll get lucky and miss some of the hard teams. Maybe they don't and end up playing more of those back-to-backs. It's just really hard to look at the schedule this year and know what you're going to get no matter what.
Checking in with the nerds on 538. Their Raptor ratings, your San Antonio Spurs, 55% to make the playoffs, meaning top 8 teams. Better chances to make them than miss them. I think I know that's top 8. That's not top 10. BasketballReference.com, playoff odds, 54% for your San Antonio Spurs to make.
That's right there. It's coin flip-ish.
Yeah. 7.5% to finish as high as a 5 seed, which would be something. It's also going to be fun, like the way the Lakers are playing, who I think everybody, they are the champions. They have LeBron James. If they get Anthony Davis back, they're probably the favorites. They could end up being a 2, 3, or 4 seed. And then so you might get rewarded with the Lakers series if you finish 6th. So that's getting way ahead of ourselves. But the point is that, and what I meant to bring up here is, so Basketball Reference has the Spurs as 54% to finish in the top 8 to make the playoffs. Their projected record for the rest of the season, 20-22. So they can finish below 500 with the rest of this schedule and still be in position to be there because of how good they've been so far. 17-12. I think that exceeds everybody's expectations as to where they'd be at this point.
It's because of how they've been so far, and also take out 1 or 2 teams, and the whole league is right around 500.
Right.
So,
this we can look ahead. We're winding down. We can look ahead to the last few games before the All-Star break, where the Spurs will have 0 All-Stars, and I believe they are by far the best team in the league without any All-Stars by record. Game against Brooklyn on Monday night, the second half of the back-to-back against the not-so-lowly Knicks, Tuesday at the AT&T Center, then finish it off Thursday against the Thunder. What are we looking for this last week, Tom?
Well, I'm on the record as saying I'm optimistic, so I'm going to stick with it.
Okay.
I'm looking
Jeff
forward
and Nick,
to that
any final thoughts?
I'm looking forward to that 1 on Lugwent's Dort in that final game.
I want to see how they respond on the back-to-back. That's been a problem all season for them. So, and the Knicks aren't bad this year. I mean, 18-17. That's the best. The first time they've been over 500 this late in the season since 2012 or 13, I believe. So, interesting to see how they do the back-to-back. They got a lot of them on the second half as long as COVID doesn't rear its ugly head. So, interested to see how they do on that. Picking up a win against the Thunder, I think, would be key. Get that win going into the break, too.
One strategic move there you could do with the back-to-back is, as of Monday morning, we're not sure if Keldon Johnson's going to play on Monday. Maybe hold him for Tuesday, a game that you have a better chance to win against the Knicks. Any of the other guys who might be coming back from COVID protocols, there might be a way to space out some of these bodies on the back-to-back, but we will see. We know that the Spurs are feeling good about things. They are upbeat heading into the All-Star break this weekend, and I think a lot of us out there in podcast land should be upbeat as well. You can be upbeat by subscribing to the Express News, by going to expressnews.com, by subscribing to the Spurs Nation newsletter. There's lots of upbeat stuff there to feel positive about. And in the meantime, everybody take care of each other and keep it real.